Welcome to another leadership conversation hosted by the Center for Executive Succession here at the Darla Moore School of Business. I'm your host, Anthony Nyberg, and today we're speaking with Dr. David Ulrich, professor of business at the University of Michigan, co-founder of the RBL Group, and the single leading voice in guiding HR to becoming more strategic. He has served on corporate boards, been named the #1 management educator and guru by Businessweek, selected by Fast Company as one of the 10 most innovative and creative leaders, and was named the most influential thinker in HR of the decade by HR Magazine, and truly has rightfully won every HR thought leader award that exists. Dave, first, thank you very much for joining us for this interview and for speaking to our students. Always a tremendous pleasure for us, and we sincerely appreciate it.
Thank you for inviting me. As I've said, I have a commitment to you personally and to Pat Wright and others, as well as the school, because our son attended, and we are eternally grateful for what you've done.
So you talk a lot about the role of HR is to succeed in the marketplace. Do you think that succeeding has changed over time, or is it the same? Does succeeding always mean the same thing, or is it really context dependent?
When we use the term, I used the term for a while, win in the marketplace, and people said, well, that's just about making money. That's not the definition. Success in the marketplace, yes, you have to make money. I mean, there's no shame in being profitable and successful, or you don't live. But you've also got to serve your customers with products and services. And I think increasingly there's a social citizenship stewardship, that organizations are places where social issues get played out. So success has multiple stakeholders. It's not just economic, it's broader.
Can you expand on that a little bit? So I heard you actually just recently say that you thought that the business roundtable's profit, people, and purpose was missing a term in there, or could be rephrased to be more effective.
Well, what they say is profit and purpose, or profit and people. And it feels almost like those are two discrete events. I'll do profit Monday, Wednesday, and Friday. I'll do people Tuesday, Thursday, and Saturday. I would prefer the word profit through people and profit through purpose, so that when we do something good with our people, we engage them, we give them an experience. The impact of that is not just a personal well-being, but it's also an impact on customers. There's been some great research, and you know the research better than me, between employee engagement and customer engagement. And when you see that relationship, it helps. And so you get employee engagement goes up, customer engagement goes up, and then investor confidence goes up. And so it's through it, it's not just and also, it's connected to each other.
One of the many contributions right on that topic is helping HR rethink who their customers are. So can you say a little bit about that?
For example, a lot of HR people say, we're worried about building a culture. And I say, how do you describe a culture? Well, culture is the roots of the tree. It's our core values. And my comment is, I like that, but it's descriptive. I love to describe culture as the leaves and branches of the tree that our customers consume. It's the fruits of the tree. So what is it we do to build the right culture against what our customers or investors expect from us? Amazon wants a culture of service and delivery. Marriott wants a culture of great customer guest experience. Disney wants a culture of giving you a wonderful experience in their park. Apple wants a culture of innovation. That's what the customers want. That then should be the driver of the culture. It's not the roots that are static. It's the leaves and branches that are changing based on what customers want.
So that really gets to what you talk about, the outside-in perspective, right? That HR needs to be thinking about the end customer, the actual user of the services or products, and not just the normal within the firm potential customers.
Yeah, I think in HR, and I'm part of that game, we talked about strategy as a mirror. And in the mirror of strategy, whatever the strategy is, innovation, geographic expansion, efficiency, I will build HR practices. I'd rather change the mirror to a window. So look through the mirror to the outside world. What is it our customers expect? What is it our investors expect? What is it our communities expect? And build against that. That way, when we go into a strategy discussion, we're not just responding to what the strategy is. We're also helping co-create success in the marketplace?
Obviously, this has been a pretty tumultuous time. We talk about the economic challenges, racial challenges, of course, COVID-19, and the list goes on, it seems. Now the election, as you raised earlier. How have all of these challenges, have they provided any insights into how HR should be leading organizational success?
I'm going to ask you what you think, Anthony. I'm not sure we know yet, but you're one of my thought partners, and I love your ideas. So I'm going to throw it back on you just a bit, and I'll share my answer, but I'd love to hear from you first. What do you think?
Well, I have liked the way that people have been framing it in terms of that the financial crisis was to kind of CFOs what this crisis is to HR, that we're an awakening of that there's more than just this, I would call it the Chicago School of Economics, that we need to be doing more. I call it the purpose of helping society, or that the employees actually having jobs is a critical stakeholder and an important outcome. So I think it's helped in that. And as more of the world sees that, that gives HR a little bit stronger role for doing some of those things.
I love that answer. It's better than mine. Mine is, in a crisis, we can see that as a threat or an opportunity. And in any crisis, it's a threat. We're threatened by the COVID crisis. I love to help people try to say, how do I discover opportunity in the middle of those crises? Now, that's not always easy to do, but discovering what's right and opportunity, I think, focuses us on where we can go more than where we've been.
So, and is one of those opportunities what you've been talking about recently about the paradoxes, like the paradox between customization and standardization?
Yeah. I mean, paradox is not a new idea. Yin, yang. I mean, it's been around. People have studied it much more than I have. But I think that paradox becomes critical. And the term that I like is the adjective in front. People like to say, let's manage paradox. That means you do away with it. I think the issue is navigate. How do you navigate inherent tensions? And again, it's not unique with me. How do we disagree without being disagreeable? Paradox is that dialectic. It's, boy, you are really focused on long term. I'm focused on short term. Let's have a conversation. I think a paradox is two guardrails on a road. If you just do one guardrail short term, you'll fail over time. You just do long term, you'll fail. How do you navigate between those two? I think our research showed that when HR people do that and when business leaders do that, they will help a company be more successful.
So is there anything that would suggest that HR professionals ought to do that better than other business leaders, or should be focusing on that more than others?
I'm not sure more than others. I think HR people have a stewardship to model what we hope others are doing. The most frustrated I ever get is when I see HR people behaving badly and then being a hypocrite and trying to get other people to behave better. One of the great lines from the Pope, it took the name Francis. St. Francis in the 1100s says, and it's a great quote, it's out of a religious context, but it's generic. I preach the gospel and sometimes use words. I think that line is so critical for HR. We encourage performance accountability. Well, how are you doing accountability in HR? We encourage leaders who empower others. Are you empowering others in HR? That our behavior should be the model that others can and should look to.
That one's a really hard one for me personally. I'd much rather say things than actually have to do them. But I take.
By the way, I'll share with you. When I was teaching, I'm heavy. That's been one of my albatrosses in life. And I was doing work on fitness in business and industry. And I had a doctoral student doing his dissertation. He said, Dave, you can talk a lot about fitness and business, but you can never do the presentation. And to some extent, he's right. I think being a leadership hypocrite gets in our way of success. On the other hand, I don't think I have to be exceptional in every single thing in order to understand it. So I struggle with that because I am so far from perfect on so many things.
So how does that tie into the idea of culture? Because I've heard you talk a lot about organization is really culture and the importance of culture.
And I've shared research in our research, and it's showing up again in our latest research. The organization, my fist, has more impact than individual talent. In our HR field, we love to fight the war for talent. I think we win the war through organization, and that gets into culture. What I'm intrigued, and by the way, I don't think anybody disagrees. Culture was the word of the year in 2016. Everybody gaga over culture, but they're defining it the way we defined other things 20 years ago as the roots of the tree. I talked about that. I think culture from the outside in is what we should be known for, that allows us to be successful in the marketplace. So Disney has a culture of exceptional guest experience in their theme park. In other Disney films, they have a culture of creativity in other Disney businesses. When I define culture through the eyes of the customer, I begin to get the right culture. And then I can bring that inside the company through my HR practices.
And again, I assume this is another place where you would say HR has a role of stewardship of that culture.
The term I love to use is two terms. I think the owner of culture is the business leader. When you build a house, the owner of the house makes the final decision. I think HR is the architect. And so steward is a good word, but I'm going to go a little further. And I also think as an architect, they give ideas and frameworks that business leaders decide. I think we're also anthropologists. A quick aside. In HR today, everybody's gaga over data and information and analytics. In the information world, my friend Wayne Brockbank, a brilliant professor, said 20% of the world's information is in spreadsheets where we can apply our statistics. We can do the regressions and the analytics. 80% of the world's data is observation. I think analysts can do the statistics, and I played in that space in my career. I'm even more impressed with being an anthropologist. How do I sense? How do I feel? And it's not yet in the spreadsheets. It's being a good observer. Intuition. For example, Anthony, you walk into a new class of students. How long before you can feel what they're like? Or you walk into a grocery store or a restaurant, or you can feel that culture. And I think that anthropology part of data is almost as valuable as the analytical part.
And is there something that gives HR a unique opportunity to be that anthropologist?
I hope so. I hope we are constantly observing and listening. What's going on with my people? What's going on with the systems? One of the things we're studying with Pat Wright and Mike Ulrich and Scott DeRue and others in our research, how do I separate signal from noise? There's a lot of noise today. My goodness, I get emails that you get. I send them to you. You send them to me. This session may be noise. Hopefully, we're giving people signals of things that really matter. And when I get that signal that this is in fact important, then I hope we in HR can build the systems to respond to it.
You had talked about that, that separating signal from noise. How do people learn that? How does HR help guide that in an organization, but how do individuals learn to do that in this day and age?
When I coach leaders, sometimes I say to them, go get data. Don't make a decision without data, because they're fairly young. I've coached a couple of leaders who've been leaders for 20 to 30 years. And their question, do I let this person go in Europe? Do I keep them? Do I not keep them? And I say to the leader, what did your instinct tell you when you woke up this morning? And they say, my instinct told me I'm going to have to let them go. And my answer is go with it. And they say, but that's not HR. You haven't got the data. You haven't done due diligence. Sometimes the experience, that 10,000 hours that's talked about, you've taught 10,000 hours in a classroom. I'll bet you've had a moment in a classroom where you say, what I'm doing right now isn't working. And you shift. That's the signal. And I don't know exactly how to get it, but I talk to people who know it. I don't know. I'm sure you've had it. I've had it. I'm doing something. I'm going, that's not working the way I intend. And I shift without data. That's the instinct. That's the noise, or that's the signal that we're trying to capture.
You talked about new principles for going forward, for how not just HR, but business leaders should be thinking about issues going forward. And I think you provided 5 possible principles. Can you describe those and talk about them?
Let me go through quickly. Number 1, personalization. I think the emotional, personal connection with people, empathy, is going to rise. I think we see that people working distance, they want to overcome this emotional malaise, the anxiety, the depression. Second, changing boundaries of work. Work, I think, for decades has been a physical place. You get up, you go to, you come home. Now I think you can work anywhere. Right now, I'm in my office in Utah. You're in your office in South Carolina. We could be in a car, a coffee shop. It doesn't matter where, but there still is a boundary. We need borders. And the boundaries are the values we share for our customers. Number 3, I think the paradox that we talked about is inevitable. Don't hide from paradox. Don't manage it. Don't do away with it. Run into it. 4, for me, is uncertainty. Harness uncertainty. Harness the wind. Harness the energy of the solar. Harness the ambiguity. Use it as an excuse to do new things. And 5, provide guidance. Analytics is not about a dashboard. It's not about an insight. It's not about a scorecard. It's about giving guidance to what we could be doing. So I think those as principles, I call them in my writing principles in progress. I don't think they're definitive, but I think we're making progress on all 5 of those.
And then just one last thing, because I was thinking about it when you were talking with the students earlier. You talked about the importance of HR getting the foundation right. So kind of which I think I would have thought about as table stakes in the past, but how critical that was from an HR perspective, really from a business perspective. And then you mentioned that HR people are still sometimes stuck in thinking about that's also what leads to profitability, or they think that's critical for it. But if you ask non-HR people, getting that foundation of HR stuff isn't in the top of the list for what leads to profitability.
Yeah.
So my question is that HR recognizing what's important, but not being able to communicate well when talking to others? Or is it actually not as important as HR thinks it is?
I don't know. You just reported some research we're just piloting. I think it's fascinating. I think HR's set of success is not necessarily what business leaders' set of success. My sense is a business leader says, look, if you can't get the trains to run on time, if you can't do the table stakes, I can't help you. I think business leaders almost assume that. I think HR folks sometimes say, it's not that easy to get the tracks laid and the trains on time. Let me make sure it works. And so I hope in HR we can connect whichever we do, either foundational work or the strategic or outside in work, to business success. And sometimes that means the business leader is not going to applaud us because people got registered to training on time. But we got to do it. If the trains don't run on time, it doesn't matter where they're going. Nobody's going to take them. I think that's fascinating. I mean, that's a pilot in our guidance work that I think we want to explore more. That I still believe that HR is not about HR. It's about helping succeed in the marketplace so that, in my heart of hearts, why are we doing this? So that people have a better experience at work and have opportunities to believe, become, and belong, that give them a place that's more powerful than they've ever seen. I have in my hall 2 pictures, Martin Luther King, who would think I did that for racial justice in the 60s. And the other man in that picture is Sheikh Zayed, who I think did that for the Muslim world. He's the founder of the UAE in the Mideast. And the other person in those pictures you can't see is my father, who did that for me. And so I hope we in HR become the creators, if you will, of organizations that succeed in the marketplace through the way we treat our people.
Once again, thank you very much for your time. We sincerely appreciate it and look forward to talking to you again. As always, thank you.
Thank you. Thank you.
You just listened to another leadership conversation. Today, Dave Ulrich shared his views regarding how HR creates value by thinking about profits through people and purpose. As he always does, he inspired us to think more deeply about how HR and organizations more broadly can be successful through creating a culture that focuses on customers and helps employees believe, become, and belong. On behalf of all of us who are associated with the Master of Human Resources program and the Center for Executive Succession here at the University of South Carolina, thank you for joining us.